The first time I saw the man who saved my life, he was sitting on a broken wooden chair under a torn umbrella, handing me his last money like it was nothing. The second time I saw him 15 years later, he was standing in front of a tiny rented house shaking so hard he could barely hold the keys to a 5-bedroom home I had just bought in his name. Before I tell you how that happened, let me ask you something. If you were down to your last savings, your rent, your food, your only security, would you give it all to a crying stranger on the street? My name is Naomi, and this is not some polished fairy tale. This is the complicated way one act of kindness wrecked me, rebuilt me, and came back around for the man who started it all. I am going to tell it to you like it really was. The fear, the shame, the miracles, the anger. And you can decide for yourself whether what happened was justice, mercy, or just dumb luck wearing a holy mask. I was 12 the year everything in my life hinged on a small brown envelope and a man who did not owe me a thing. That morning started with my stepfather's voice cutting through the house like a knife. He slapped a bundle of notes against his palm and glared at me like I had already done something wrong. "This is your school fees," he said. 4,000 naira. If you lose this money, if you come back here without a receipt, do not enter this house. I am not feeding liabilities. I heard every word, not just with my ears, with my bones. My mother stood behind him near the doorway, her hands twisted in her wrapper, her eyes full of things she no longer dared to say. She had lost her teaching job months before. No job, no income, no power. She opened her mouth, closed it again. Silence had become her way of surviving that man. I took the money with both hands like it was sacred. I slid it into my school bag, zipped it up carefully, even checked it twice. I thought I was being responsible. Then I stepped out into the bright morning heat, my heart pounding with his threat. Every step to school felt like carrying a bomb I couldn't afford to drop. Halfway there, I realized I was late. The gatekeeper at my school lived for closing that gate in kids' faces, so I started to run. You know how that goes. Bag bouncing, books shifting, zippers slipping. I didn't hear the envelope slide out. I didn't feel it fall. All I heard was my own heartbeat and the sound of my shoes slapping the pavement. At the gate, I stepped aside to grab the money so I could head straight to the bursar's office. The envelope was not there. I told myself I was missing it. I dug under my notebooks, my pencil case, checked every corner of that bag. I turned it upside down. My fingers started shaking so hard I could barely grip the zipper. Still nothing. There is a very specific kind of cold that hits you when you realize you have just destroyed something you cannot fix. That cold went through me from the inside out. 4,000 naira, gone. I walked back down the road. I had just run, scanning every crack in the sidewalk, every patch of dirt, every gutter. Nothing. People walked by in their neat clothes in their rush in their own problems. Some looked at me and then looked away like my panic was something contagious. Nobody stopped, except one person. He was sitting by a rough wooden table pressed against a cracked wall, shoes laid out in front of him. Broken heels, worn-out sandals, men's shoes with split soles. An old umbrella hung crooked above his head, more whole than fabric. His shirt was faded, his trousers tired, his hands stained with polish and glue. But when he lifted his head to look at me, his eyes were sharp, kind, and awake. "My child." He called, his voice rough but soft at the edges. "Why are you crying like this? Come here, talk to me." I wanted to keep walking. I wanted to hold my shame alone. But fear is heavy, and his tone felt like somewhere I could set it down for a second. I stopped. "I lost my school fees," I choked out. "My stepfather gave me 4,000 to pay today. I thought it was in my bag. It must have fallen. If I go home without the receipt, he will beat me, he will throw my mother and me out. I don't know what to do." He stood up slowly from the little stool, like every movement came with a cost. He stepped closer, looking right at me, not through me. "How much did you say?" he asked. 4,000, I whispered. He nodded once. Then he reached into his pocket. Now this is the part that still doesn't make sense mathematically. He pulled out a small folded bundle of notes. You could tell it was not extra money, it was all the money. He stared at it, took a breath, then looked at me. "This is all I have for this month," he said quietly. "For my house rent, for food, for me and my grandson. But I cannot leave you like this. Take it. Go and pay your fees." I took a tiny step back. "Sir, I can't take that. You will take it," he said, not harsh, just firm. He took my hand and pushed the money into it. "You must go to school. One day you will be someone important, and you will remember this day. My name is Johnson. People call me Ogre Johnson. Do not forget that. Be serious with your education. Do not follow bad friends. Make me proud. No paperwork, no witness, no demand he ever see that money again. Just faith in a crying kid he'd never seen before." I remember promising through tears, "I won't forget you, sir. I will make you proud." And then running all the way back to school. I paid my fees. I collected the receipt. That thin sheet of paper felt like a shield between me and hell. When I got home, my mother grabbed it with shaking hands and kissed it. "Thank God," she breathed. For a moment, it felt like we were safe. "Mom," I said, "I have to tell you something." I told her about losing the money, about Johnson, about his last savings. She listened, her mouth slowly opening, her eyes filling. "A poor shoemaker did that," she whispered. "For you." She shook her head, then straightened up with a kind of fierce gratitude. "We must go and thank him. People like that are rare." Pattern interrupt. While we were planning how to show gratitude, the world was already attacking the man we wanted to thank. That same day, across town, government trucks crawled down Johnson's street. Men in faded uniforms and reflective vests shouted into megaphones. All roadside stalls and illegal sheds must be removed. Now, you were warned. They didn't wait for anyone to answer. They tore down tables, smashed wooden stalls, yanked tarps and umbrellas to the ground. Johnson's tiny shoemaker shed, that fragile little universe where he'd just changed my life, went down in seconds. His shoes fell into the dust, his tools scattered, his work half destroyed. He begged, "Please let me pack my things. I am a poor man. This is all I have, please." No one listened. They shoved him aside and moved on to the next shack. When he stumbled back to the room, he rented, clutching whatever tools he could grab. He found his bags and his grandson's bags sitting outside the gate. The landlady stood there with her hands on her hips. "Johnson," she said, "I told you. 1 year, 6 months, no complete rent. I am tired. I have new tenants. You and that boy should go." He begged again. He told her they had just demolished his stall. He asked for time. "I am not a charity," she said, and shut the door in his face. That night, Johnson and his grandson Andrew slept outside with their belongings stacked beside them. No roof, no food, no plan. Just cement and sky. Now let me stop right there and ask you, do you think that is fair? A man gives his last money so a child he doesn't know won't be beaten and thrown out, and the same day he loses his business and his home. You tell me in the comments, fair or the world doing what the world does? Andrew tried to comfort him. "Grandpa, God will help us," he said, voice shaking but loyal. Johnson lay on that concrete whispering, "God, I do not regret helping that girl. If I had to choose again, I would help her. But please, I need a miracle. For this boy. For us." The next morning he made a decision he later told me about in detail. He sold their old television, one of the last things he owned, and bought 2 bus tickets to another city to find his old friend Simon. That was his last move. If it failed, he had nothing left to try. Simon opened the gate and stared at them, taking in the bags, the dust, the tired faces. "What happened?" he asked, pulling them into the house. Johnson told him everything: the girl, the money, the demolition, the eviction, the sidewalk. Simon listened, then laughed a little through his disbelief. Johnson, you came at the right time. He explained he and his wife were moving out that weekend to a new house his son had built. The house they were in was fully paid up for another year. He had planned to hand the keys back to the landlord and collect the remainder. Instead, he put the keys in Johnson's hand. Stay here, Simon said. I will talk to the landlord. You once sold your phone to help my mother in the hospital. Let me do small for you now. Johnson cried. I am not talking about one tear sliding down. I am talking about the kind of crying that makes your shoulders shake. Later, when I heard this part from him, it made sense to me. He planted in someone else's pain before. It came back when he was drowning. Seeds and harvests in human form. On our side, things were also breaking and rebuilding. When my stepfather heard my mother and I had gone to look for the shoemaker to say thank you, he didn't hear gratitude. He heard accusation. You left this house for a man, he shouted. You think I am a fool, we tried to explain. He didn't want truth. He wanted control. He dragged our bags out and threw them into the yard. If you like that shoemaker so much, go and live with him, he spat. Get out of my house. Yeah, that happened. Just like that, we were homeless because somebody showed us kindness. We ended up sitting in front of a small store with our bags, no plan. My mother had 500 naira left. A rough-looking man in dirty clothes came by and asked her for something to buy water. She gave him 200 without flinching. He smiled, pulled a crumpled raffle ticket from his pocket and said, Take this, Mama, you will be a millionaire soon. Then walked away. Would you have given away part of your last 500 in that moment? Or held on to it like your life depended on it? Think about it. She almost threw the ticket away. Something made her fold it and tuck it into her bag. A few days later, after working at the market, washing plates and carrying water, just to find food, she walked past a small office with a sign showing winning raffle numbers. On impulse, she went in, pulled out the ticket, and asked the man to check. He looked at it, looked at the board, then looked back at her. Madam, he said, this is the winning ticket. She laughed. He showed her again. 100 million naira. She sat down slowly. Are you serious? She whispered, shaking. That money changed everything. Not overnight like magic, but it gave us safety. We rented a real home, started a small business, paid for my school without threats hanging over my head. My mother was careful, not crazy, and over time that blessing grew. We invested, we worked, we learned. I finished school. I studied business. I built my own company. I became in public eyes the kind of woman people point to when they want to say hard work pays. They never see the hidden footnotes, a shoemaker's last savings, a stranger's raffle ticket, a lifetime of fear pushing me forward. And I never forgot Johnson. Every year on that date, I sat down somewhere quiet and thought of him. I sent people back to that old road. All they ever found was empty space. No shed. No one who knew where he'd gone. It was like the earth had swallowed him. 15 years passed. Now we get to the part where destiny, coincidence, God, whatever name you like, shows off. One hot Saturday, I was heading to an event. Traffic was backed up, so I told my driver to stop near a market, and I would walk the rest of the way. As I stepped out, the strap of my heel snapped clean off. Of course it did. I looked around and saw a small roadside stall with some shoes and a young man working. I walked over, holding my broken heel. Hey, can you fix this? I asked. He looked up, and there was something about him, calm, respectful, no fake grin, that caught my attention even before he spoke. Yes, Ma, he said. He took the shoe with both hands, like it wasn't beneath him, like work was work. In a couple of minutes, he had the strap back in place, tight and neat. How much? I asked, already reaching into my purse. He shook his head. No need, Ma, it's just small work, you can go. That threw me off. Most people would have tripled the price as soon as they saw my clothes and the car I stepped from. You sure? I asked. Yes, Ma, he said. You looked like you were in a hurry. I just wanted to help. That was the moment my respect for him started. We spoke for a bit. His name was Andrew. He had finished university, no job, no connections, so he helped his grandfather make and repair shoes instead of sitting around complaining. There was no self-pity in his voice, just realism. "You know what?" I told him, "I have been looking for a driver. Someone calm, respectful, careful. If you are interested, call this number tomorrow." I gave him my card. He called. He came, moved into the staff quarters at my place, started driving for my mother and me. Andrew was different. Always on time. No smell of alcohol, no silly stories, no borrowing money every week. He drove like he understood that human lives were in his hands. One day, a reckless bike shot across our lane. He swerved, gently avoided the crash, kept his voice steady. "My job is to keep you safe," he said, like it was the simplest thing. Over time, those quiet drives turned into small conversations. He talked about his grandfather, how he raised him, how he struggled, how he never stopped praying. I could hear love in every sentence. Back in his small town, Johnson was worried. He had seen the world. He knew some rich women used boys like Andrew, then threw them away. When Andrew came home and told him about his job, the cars, the big house, Johnson asked 100 questions. "Are they treating you well? Are you sleeping safely? Are they good people?" Then came the part Andrew later confessed to me. "Grandpa," he said, "I think I'm falling in love with her." Johnson almost had a heart attack. "You want trouble, the madam's daughter. Are you not thinking?" Andrew held his ground. He told him I treated him with respect, that my mother was kind, that nobody had ever disrespected him or used his position against him. Johnson quieted down, but fear stayed. On my end, it was getting real too. One evening I told my mom, "I think I love Andrew." She didn't scream. She didn't tell me I was crazy. She just gave me that long look and said, "I have eyes. If his heart is clean and he respects you, his background doesn't scare me. Let him speak first. If he is a man, he will." Pattern interrupt. Imagine that. A rich woman and a driver both praying the other one isn't out of their mind. One late afternoon in the small garden behind the house, Andrew finally asked if he could talk to me. "Just 5 minutes," he said, already nervous. We stood by the flowers, the sky turning soft. "Naomi," he started, "I know who you are. I know where I come from. I know how this looks, but I cannot hide it anymore. I have fallen in love with you. If this makes you uncomfortable, if it costs me my job, I will accept that, but I needed you to know." For a second, I let him breathe in that terror. Then I smiled. "Andrew," I said quietly, "I've been waiting for you to say that. I love you too." Yeah, that really happened. We took it slow. We honored lines. We told my mother. She approved, simple as that. No drama. The only person left was Johnson, the man who had carried Andrew like his own son all these years. "I want you to meet him," Andrew told me. "I want him to see who I love." So one Saturday we drove out to his town. No convoy, no show. Just us. The neighborhood was simple. Kids playing in the dust. Women cooking by small stoves. Men on plastic chairs talking about politics and football. It felt like home and memory. We went into a tiny living room. The chairs were worn but clean. A little table sat in the middle with a plastic cloth on it. "He stepped out to buy something," Andrew said. "He'll be back soon." Then the door opened. An older man walked in carrying a black nylon bag. He saw Andrew and broke into a smile that lit up his whole face. "My son, you did not tell me you were coming," he said. Then he turned to me, and I swear my heart stopped. The years were on his face now. More lines, more gray, more weight. But I knew that face. Those eyes. That way he moved careful, like someone who had worked with his hands his whole life. Something inside me whispered, "It's him." He joked with Andrew about bringing such a beautiful guest. I tried to smile, but my palms were sweating. I needed to be sure. "Sir," I asked, my voice softer than I meant it to be. "Please, what is your name?" He frowned, surprised by the question. "My name is Johnson," he said. "Some people call me Ogre Johnson." Everything in me went quiet. "Sir," I said, stepping closer. 15 years ago, there was a girl crying on the roadside because she lost her school fees. A shoemaker sitting under a small umbrella gave her his last 4,000 naira and told her not to forget his name. "Was that you?" His mouth opened. He stared like he was trying to see the child in my grown face. "Yes," he whispered. "I remember. I think of that girl sometimes. She never came back. You cannot be." "I am that girl," I said, and I dropped to my knees in front of him. "My name is Naomi. You saved me. You saved my mother. Because of you, I paid those fees. Because of those fees, I stayed in school. Because I stayed, I am here." Andrew spun around, stunned. "Grandpa, this is the girl." Johnson's hands started shaking. Tears filled his eyes. "God," he said, sinking slowly into the chair, "you brought her back." That was the twist. That moment. A poor man's sacrifice, a little girl's promise, a grown woman's love, a grandson's future, all colliding in one tiny room. We talked for hours. He told me about the demolition, the eviction, how Simon took him in, how life never got easy, but they survived. I told him about the raffle ticket, the business, all the years I searched for him and never found a trace. The next day, I asked him to sit out front of his house. He grumbled. I insisted. A car pulled up. 4 men climbed out carrying bags of rice, cartons of noodles, oil, household supplies, beautiful clothes. Johnson blinked like the sun was tricking him. "What is happening?" he asked. "This is just hello," I said. Then I handed him an envelope. He opened it slowly. His eyes went wide. 10 million naira, he whispered. "That's for you," I told him. "For your stall, your lost rent, every night you went hungry after helping me without hesitation. For the faith you had when it made no sense." He tried to speak. His voice cracked. Before he could catch his breath, I handed him another envelope. Inside were house documents and keys. "This," I said, "is a 5-bedroom house in your name. Paid in full. Furnished. You will never answer to a wicked landlord again. You will never sleep on the street again." He dropped to his knees on that dusty ground, both hands on his face. Andrew held him. I knelt beside them. "God did not forget me," Johnson cried. "He did not forget." A few weeks later, Andrew and I got married in a simple garden ceremony. Not flashy, not a show, just family and gratitude. My mother sat next to Johnson, both of them looking at us like they were watching a promise come true. Johnson wore a new outfit, standing straight, not as that poor shoemaker, but as the grandfather of the groom, the man of honor. Months later, when our twin boys were born, I placed one in his arms. "If you had not helped me that day," I said, "this child would not exist in this story. Neither would this family as we know it." He looked down at that baby and whispered, "I gave my last, and God gave me more than I asked." Now I know that sounds like the perfect ending, but I want to leave you with something that might bother you the same way it bothers me. For every Johnson whose kindness circles back in such a dramatic way, how many people give like that and never get anything in return in this life? For every Naomi who gets a second chance, how many kids lose the envelope and get a beating instead of a blessing? For every miracle ticket, how many mothers keep losing? Do we call this destiny and move on? Do we shrug and say, "God will reward you someday," while people like him sleep on sidewalks? Do we treat stories like mine as proof that it all works out, when for most people it doesn't? If it were you sitting under that umbrella, with your last 4,000 in your pocket and a hungry grandchild waiting at home, what would you have done honestly? Would you have handed it all to a stranger, or kept walking, hoping someone else would care? Was I right to pour so much back into one man, or should I have spread that money among many people? Is it fair that our story tied up so beautifully when so many good people never get their reveal moment? I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments if you think this was fate, faith, karma, coincidence, or a mix of all of it. Tell me whether you see Johnson as a hero or a fool. Tell me what you would have done in his shoes or in mine. Argue with me if you want to. I can take it. If this story touched you, do one thing for me right now, hit that like button, so more people hear it, share it with someone who has forgotten that kindness still matters, and subscribe if you want more real stories told raw, without hiding how unfair life can be. And then please share your own story below. A time someone showed up for you when you had nothing, or a time you gave when it hurt. Because you never know which act of kindness is quietly writing the next chapter of somebody's life.